nothing like making new friends at a college that's just anime club, but with degrees, where people unironically wear hentai merch, act like being a Reddit mod is a profession, and being a Discord kitten is expected. Well known for game development and cybersecurity, our syllabus opened by highlighting the importance of personal hygiene, which was largely disregarded. It was like late September-ish, and I was outside on the lawn in front of the dorm next door to mine chatting with a classmate, and someone else came over. The classmate ended up leaving because his parents showed up, but the other student introduced himself and asked if we could be friends. Of course, we're all first years and looking to try and find where we fit in, so I enthusiastically agreed and we exchanged numbers. I'm not going to name this individual, but if you or anyone we know is watching, I sincerely hope that you don't pursue this method in the future, and I hope that you've gotten the help and love that you needed. With that out of the way, we'll call him Fish. Fish was in cybersecurity and digital forensics and said that he was on a scholarship from the FBI, which I thought was really cool because I had considered cybersecurity, so for someone to be so good at it that they got a scholarship from the FBI is really awesome. I was a game design major with a minor in professional writing. So this interaction started off very normal, but I'm quite well known with my closer friends for somehow attracting some of like the weirdest people imaginable. For example, just the other day, I was at the grocery store and this old lady came up to me and asked me if I wanted a comic book. And she handed it to me, and it turns out it was like an evangelical, like, cult kind of propaganda thing. And I was like, what? Okay. I guess for some reason I look very friendly and very easy to approach.
Okay. So, let me give you a little bit of a rundown on our current situation.
I make friends incredibly easily. I was also in a long-distance relationship at the time of this interaction, which I'm only going to touch on lightly because, like, it doesn't really pertain to this story too much. But it definitely does have a little bit. So, a few weeks pass and I've become pretty close with their friend group and him. And he revealed to me that he had an older sister who passed away in a car accident. And that I was a lot like her.
Footnote. I actually sent my friend this drawing ahead of time, and she actually thought that the person underneath the car stamps was me. And I was like, wow, maybe I really am like his dead sister.
He mentioned that we were around the same height and had similar personalities, and it brought him a lot of comfort since they were like super close, which is nice. I want to put a note here that I never actually saw a picture of his sister. He only told me about her. He also told me a lot about how he made music and even performed at some larger concerts with bands like 21 Pilots, and I was surprised and I congratulated him. But for some reason I never asked to see proof or anything. I was just like, oh, that's cool.
He also mentioned to me that he made a lot of money off of his music, but he didn't want other people to use him for it, so he didn't tell people that he was rich. But he told me. And he tried to say it in a casual way, but it definitely came off as like a humble brag.
He also never really brought up his parents or anything, so I don't really know their relationship that well. He mentioned them once, but never often. I think he mentioned that he had to go to dinner with them, and they were separated, and they also had differing political views. So dinner was really difficult because they'd end up arguing because they didn't see eye to eye. Something like that. But he never really brought it up. He did mention, though, that he had family in Europe, and they owned a castle, which was part of a castle restoration project, and they sold cider. He said that they would be sending him some bottles and I could have one, but he later said that one of them broke in the mail, so he only had his, which, whatever. I'm usually pretty perceptive of people's intentions because of my other experiences, but I decided to let my thoughts on this go because let me remind you that he said I was like his dead family member that he was close with, and that wasn't something I took lightly. I work really hard to see good in everyone I can, and even when I do have an inkling of someone's intentions, I keep it to myself until it's confirmed, because I'd rather not say anything and be right than say something and be wrong. So early on in our friendship, he also mentioned that he saw me on Admitted Students Day and joked that I looked 10 years old.
Right to jail, right away.
Oh God. I'm quite short and I do have a baby face, so this isn't unheard of. But I definitely look older than 10 years old. I want to make that very clear. I do not look 10 years old. What is unheard of, though, is for him to later claim on the same day that I looked like a child that I was beautiful.
FBI, open up!
Let's put a pin in that one. He's big on hugs.
Where my hug at?
And holding on to people, and I'm really not. I'm not super comfortable with it, but he definitely is a bit pushy about it. This was like 5 years ago, so I wasn't confident in my ability to tell people no. I was very reserved, and I mostly just avoided things as best I could without saying anything. Not the best, but what can you do? I was already a bit traumatized from other stuff, so I did the best I could. So I'm already kind of uncomfortable, but I felt awkward speaking up about it because he's made it clear to me that it's in a family way because of how I remind him of his dead sister. And I don't really want to challenge that, you know? Like, what am I going to say? Like, I'm nothing like your dead sister that I've never met. Or, you don't even have a dead sister. Like, I can't say that. So, I often stayed pretty late at night just hanging out with everyone since they invited me over pretty often. I mainly just sat there and didn't really talk. I played games on my phone. I just kind of chilled and watched. He started to ask me to stay with him until he fell asleep because he had nightmares, and that his sister used to stay with him. And it made him feel a lot calmer because he had a lot of issues, he took medication for it, and he would see hallucinations or whatever. Anyway, I ended up laying next to him for a while until he fell asleep. I wanna make this clear that we were not like snuggling or cuddling or anything, like literally just laying there, not even under the covers. Like, he was under the covers. I was not. But at one point, he tried to put his hand in my back pocket.
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Absolutely not. And then I avoided, like, anything of the sort from then on. Anytime he would ask me to lay with him or sit with him so that he could get some sleep, I would literally just sit on the edge of the bed. Or I would, like, sit on a chair, on the back of a chair next to him. I'll draw a little picture so you can understand. This is really awkward. I felt really pressured, and also, putting your hand in my back pocket is not something you do to your sister. That's just weird. And he's also well aware that I'm in a relationship, so he made it clear that he was asking from the point of view that I'm a stand-in for his sister, whose death he felt responsible for because he had fought with her the morning that she got into the accident. Alright, let's pause here for a moment. You, as listeners, will probably be smarter than I was and are already probably suspicious at this point. And I'm also feeling pretty weird. He knows I'm in a relationship, and he tries to make it very clear that he only sees me as a sister, pretty much. But I'm uncomfortable, especially after he tried to put his hand in my back pocket. I'm like, dude, what? He would usually walk me back over to my dorm, which was pretty kind, even if it was literally just across the lawn. We lived in houses, so there was just one next to the other on the street. It was literally just like a lawn apart. And at one point, he kissed me on the top of the head, which was really weird. I honestly wasn't sure what to say. Because, like, how do you react to that? Yeah. He made a comment about me being a child or like a child or something like that. And I was like, what the heck?
Another footnote here. I also want to remind you guys that I am not good with, like, physical touch from people that I don't know super well. And it wasn't that I didn't know him super well, but definitely not enough to receive a kiss on the head, especially if I could barely give him a hug. I would also like to add in here that I did say, please don't do that again, because that's definitely something I was extremely, extremely uncomfortable with.
I want to mention that anytime that he would hug me, I would also hug the other people in the room to show that him hugging me wasn't something special. I would hug other people too. It wasn't just because it was him that I was giving him a hug. Later, I found out that he was getting extremely possessive of me and jealous of his roommate, who we'll call Coco. We'll call him Coco because one time we ate Cocoa Puffs with like no milk at 9 p.m. on the floor of my dorm room. Coco and I were similar majors and we saw each other pretty often, especially since I was over. And anytime that he was in the room and Fish would ask me for a hug, I would also ask Coco if he wanted a hug, and I would hug Coco. Coco, I know you will be listening to this, so thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for putting up with me hugging you. And I would chat with him a lot because we also had similar interests. We both like D&D, things like that. Coco later told me that Fish even accused him of stealing me from him and would throw little jealous fits and ask him to leave when I would come over. I'm sure you're all like, Baggy, what does your boyfriend think of all this? And he was also weirded out, but we were super close and pretty much always talking to each other online, so he knew what was going on and he also trusted me. I also should clarify that I have no romantic feelings for Fish in the slightest. Not then, not now, not ever. He was strictly just a friend to me, and I was very much under the impression that he believed me to be a sister figure. Oh, Baggy, you fool. You sad, sad, miserable fool. Fast forward a little bit, and I've been in their friend group for a while. And I also have several other friend groups I'm a part of now. And Fish and I at this point have gotten pretty close. We talk every day, it's good. I have friends. And Fish even proposes to his girlfriend that I didn't know he had. And I'm happy for them, yay! But what? But then all of a sudden, a month later, they're no longer together? Not that I knew that they were together in the first place. The only girl I knew about was his ex, who he told me did things I cannot repeat on YouTube to him, and that he broke up with her after 6 years. So where did he get this other wife? Huh? Now, they've also added someone new to the friend group. We'll call her Bagel. Bagel is lovely, but I don't know her that well. Fish and Bagel start getting very close, and I'm very happy for them. I began to spend a lot more time with the people from my dorm building because Fish seemed pretty close to Bagel for the time being, and I was happy to spend more of my time in my own building with my roommates and my other friends. Like I said, I'm an introvert. I don't like going out that much, so if I could stay in my dorm, and so I'm super happy for Fish to have hopefully found someone that he enjoys spending time with, and it made me believe that he really did see me as a sister. I know, I'm really holding on to that. I'm really holding on to that little tiny thread that I might just be a sister to him. It's important to note that at this point I've separated from my partner for reasons I'm not going to discuss here. It's not something I brought up or told Fish for a little bit anyway. I'm a pretty private person with that kind of stuff, so I didn't feel that he needed to know, and I was not interested in sharing. It was pretty messy, so I didn't think it was anyone else's business. Christmas break goes by and we all go home and we come back. So Bagel's story isn't really mine to tell, but I will mention that he basically coerced her out of her relationship, her happy relationship as far as I know, into one with him, like a FWB situation, while still apparently dating the girl he proposed to. She did not know this. She did not know anything about the other girl. He was the first guy she dated. She's bi and she'd only ever been in relationships with females. So she felt she didn't know what was good and what wasn't. I have to be honest, my memory is pretty fuzzy around a lot of this information since there was so much and it happened a while ago at this point. This went on for about a month or so until they separated. I didn't know Bagel that well, so I believed that she was a bad person due to a lot of the things that Fish told me. He fed me quite a few lies about her. Thankfully, we had a full discussion and we both shared our poor experiences and we kind of trauma bonded over it. So we're friends now, and both of us are like, oh my god, I can't believe that we didn't talk together sooner and put our heads together sooner. So yeah, everything's all good with Bagel and I. So Fish and I, not so much. Bagel and I, perfect. We all start hanging out again, and Fish has gotten noticeably more flirty towards me, and I'm starting to get a little nervous.
I'm in danger!
Well, not necessarily flirty, but he definitely treats me like more than a sister, and he's also been sharing his extremely personal problems. I'm mostly fine with this because I'm always happy to help my friends out with anything, but this time, this started to go too far. Like, I'm fine with most things. Like, if you're over the cliff, that's totally fine. If you're hanging on to a branch halfway down the cliff about to fall, I am happy to try and climb down and reach you and bring you back up. But if you're falling and about to hit the ground, there is nothing I can do. Please seek professional help. And that's what I recommended. And he did not take my recommendation. He gave me every excuse in the book to not go to therapy because the new therapist wasn't as good as his old therapist. And I was like, oh my God, you have to try. He was telling me about the medication he was taking and that it was really bad if he didn't take it. And he was also discussing like his mental health issues that I didn't really understand, and I still don't. I know quite a bit about mental health, but what he was saying just did not make any sense. He kept trying to convince me that he had multiple personalities, that he was taking like an antipsychotic that was super controlled, and that he had like a muscle relaxer too that he could inject in himself. And at the time, I didn't know anything about medication, so I totally just believed it. And then I learned later that the medication I'm pretty sure he was taking is fluoxetine, which is the generic for Prozac, which is like one of the most common antidepressants you can take. So it's not an antipsychotic, and it's not a controlled drug other than a prescription. For his mental health issues, other than like the multiple personalities that he apparently had, he also he would tell me his symptoms bullet pointed, like he just was reading off of like WebMD or something. Or the symptoms wouldn't match what he was saying.
I know that there are a lot of overlaps between symptoms, but the best example I can give would be if he claimed that he had like clinical depression and then listed the symptoms for generalized anxiety disorder.
COVID hits and we have to go home. And I spent most of my time hanging out with him and our friends on Discord. We were playing games, chatting. Kind of. I live in an extremely rural area, and I only had limited satellite internet, so I couldn't really do much. But I was always happy to sit and chat, and sometimes I could play Valorant. Woo! Anyway, back to the story. Fish claimed to start having extremely strong thoughts about visiting his sister. That he kept bringing up to me. And it was becoming my job to soothe him.
Fucking baby.
Because he wouldn't take my advice. Now, I understand that some people just want to vent. And if you just want to vent, that's totally fine. I won't give you any advice. But if you ask me for help, and I take time out of my day to help you, and then you do nothing, I can't do anything else for you.
Stop it. Get some help.
And he kept crying to me, and eventually he said he was in the hospital for failing to plan his trip well enough. I'd like to make a note here that I do not take these thoughts lightly. If you're having a real issue, if you're having problems and you need help, you need help. This is not a joke. These thoughts can be really dangerous, and I understand that. But I know someone who had to go to the psych ward, and when you're there, they even make you take the strings out of your sweatpants. You would not have your phone there. But here Fish is, messaging me. And he even FaceTimed me from the hospital. His phone was down and his screen was black, so I didn't actually believe he was anywhere even near a hospital. We wouldn't have heard from him for days if this was the case. He was messaging me frantically about how he lost his job due to COVID, and he doesn't have health insurance, so he won't be able to pay the medical bills for this, and his tuition. But here's the thing. Let's go back maybe 10 to 15 minutes. Remember when he said he had a full scholarship from the FBI? Why does he need to pay his tuition if he has a full scholarship? The wheels in my head had already started turning, but this really solidified it. This really locked them in. He's worried about paying tuition, but he has a full scholarship. Something doesn't add up. And at this point, I'm almost 100% sure that most of the things he's told me are lies. I'm even starting to question whether or not the sister he insists I'm like is even real. So we get over this whole issue and he goes home and he's still having problems, but we're on better terms. In some upcoming months, I got a message from him that he needed advice because there was a girl he liked, but he wasn't sure what to do. He said he was worried that she'd see him differently if he told her his feelings. Now, if you've ever had a friend or someone you know confess to you like this, you already know where this is going. But if you haven't, which is honestly for the best, let me explain to you just how this went down. He started off by talking about this girl he really liked that has helped him a lot, and he wasn't sure if he should tell her his feelings or not. I'm trying to be a good support for him, even though I'm pretty sure I know who he's talking about. So I tell him that it's really up to him and whether or not he feels like she'll like him back. And I even mentioned that I understood since I had someone I was aiming for and that I wanted to try an in-person relationship since my previous ones had mostly been online. He followed up with that he felt like she wouldn't like him back and that he felt unlovable and that even though he really loved her, he wasn't sure about being able to be in a relationship. And then he also brought up that he knew she liked someone and that he felt like he might not have a chance. He also mentioned that he didn't want it to change their friendship if she didn't have the same feelings and said no. This is completely understandable. I know that it is very hard to be in a situation where you like someone, know they don't like you back, and don't want them to leave if they find out. I want to make it clear that it takes a lot of courage to tell someone you like them, and I know that. But at this point, a lot of the comments he's made about women and myself made me have a lot less sympathy. So I just decided to play dumb and let him keep going. I gave him some advice, and then he eventually came to a conclusion. I was looking at Instagram memes and whatnot during this whole thing because I already knew what was going to happen. And while it may come across as really rude for those of you who have never dealt with this, I would not be doing this if I wasn't uncomfortable. And in the words of one of my friends, I wouldn't have been trying to distract myself if I didn't know about the trauma you were about to put me through. Beautifully said. Thank you. So he's still messaging me about this girl who, at this point, I'm like dead, like his sister, certain is me. And I find this photo of a really long avocado that they called the long avocado. And for some reason, probably because it was later at night, maybe like 1 or 2 a.m., this absolutely took me out. I thought it was so funny. So I screenshotted it and I sent it to him. Since the conversation was pretty much over, I was just like, long avocado, F! And this man sent back, love how we glossed over my confession there. Haha. And I sent back another long avocado because I was really praying that he wouldn't have said that. And I didn't want it to happen. I wanted to pretend that he didn't just say that. But he doubled down and sent, you did it again. I lost my messages when my phone got wiped, so I don't remember exactly how I responded, but I pretty much said that I didn't really think it was a confession. And he responded with, oh God, this is so painful. He responded with, that's because I haven't professed my undying love for you yet. A little bit of relationship advice. If you're confessing to someone, don't say that. Just don't say that. Just don't. I have never felt more uncomfortable in my life before this point until he said that. I physically recoiled from that message, and I still do, reading it for this video. I pretty much told Fish that this didn't really change the way I saw him, but I didn't hold the same feelings. This man said I reminded him of his dead sister on multiple occasions, and months later is asking me out? I later learned that he had been aiming for me on the day that we exchanged contact information, but backed off after finding out I was already in a relationship. I guess the next best thing was to be a sibling? Wait. He did watch Kiss X Sis on their dorm TV. Which, for those of you who don't know, is an incest harem anime. Alright, so there's a lot to unpack here. I think I'll let you guys sort out your thoughts before we keep going. We are not even halfway through this story. Yes, it gets worse.